bio?
I did read her bio. She sounds so fascinating
Eh,
and cool.
She is super cool and very fascinating. And here comes Gabby. The interesting part is that, so we'll start right now. I'm glad that you read her bio because I actually read it yesterday when Gabby sent it to me, when Issa sent it to me. And then in my mind, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize like how much, like I've met her through working with her on a project. She cast me in the Le'Veon and Jared holiday collection. And that's how I got to know Issa. And so I just thought the way that she approached me and how we like developed like a good working, relationship as we were going through recording this particular project, I just thought she's so fucking cool, like and then now I was reading her bio and I kept thinking to myself like, gosh, I need to do more. I need to like
Right.
I need some nunchucks. I need some like martial art
So when you did the
training.
voiceover for that commercial, was she the one that was directing you, like live?
She cast me, and then Jared and Le'Veon, they partnered with this holiday collection
Okay.
for this particular client, and for Mare Azzurro, which is the client, and they partnered for this holiday collection, and so they were together on a Zoom, so it was a live direct, and she cast me, and then the other guy, um, from Jared. He was directing me. Yeah. And then in the end, like we did a bunch of revisions and a couple, it was really funny because she actually contacted me at like 6:01 on Halloween and was like, I need you back in the booth. I need you to recut this. And I'm like literally walking out the door to go trick or treating with my youngest kid. And, and I was like, she had my number. So she texted me real quick. And it was one of those things where I was like, kids, hold on. And I'm running into the booth and cracking up with the mic and, to get out a couple of like, there was like some sales lines that needed to be done that had been missed. You know what I'm saying? So it was like something that they needed. Gabby, hi.
Hi, Gabby.
Hi. Good to
Glad that
see you
you're
guys.
here.
Yeah.
I got in trouble already, so I'm already causing chaos. Just kidding, from Sandy. But
Oh,
she was talking about a
I was
project and
spilling secrets. I didn't realize that this was like the FBI or the CIA and that all my secrets were being recorded to be broadcast later to get me in trouble.
she didn't she didn't realize that when the mics are cracked and the ball is rolling that,
yeah. And
the
and
ship is
anything goes.
sailing.
Like,
Uh-huh.
I thought we
Yeah.
were waiting for you to get here first, and so it's like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah," and I was like, "Wait, like, what? I can't talk about any of this. Like, what is happening?"
She
Yeah, we like
injured
to
her
record
knee.
the chaos.
Yeah, I was trying to show Jaws my knee, and I will be
Oh,
So she injured her
oh,
knee.
the swelling went down at least, but, I was
yeah.
on a set,
That's all she
leave
can
it at that.
say.
And
Okay.
I was an extra on the set, and I had to do some action,
Stunt
and
Okay.
devil.
the action was on an incline. And
Oh my
I was
God.
going too fast as I was actioning on the incline, and I, like, ate shit and fell and, like, hit my knee and tumbled and down
Oh
a ramp
no.
so stunt double, I am not. Let's mark that off the resume, that's not gonna
That's
stick.
that's
Well,
not.
I'm glad you're okay. And
Yeah,
you
it
can
was
like
still a
fully
fun.
walk.
Oh, yeah, yesterday was really
Okay.
swollen, and I, like, iced
Yeah.
it, but today's just bruised. No, like,
Okay.
internal damage, it's all just surface damage, but I'm old and wimpy, so, like, it hurts.
When they say break a leg, they didn't really mean like break
Like
yourself.
break a leg.
Now it's just bust a knee, perhaps a shoulder and a hip.
Yeah, she took it too literally.
I know you
But
did
no,
take it a little too literally.
that's awesome. You were giving it your all. Literally.
Apparently, I gave it a little too much.
She was fully invested in her actioning. I love being on set. Like I love the whole like being on set and like it's a whole lot of hurry up and then a whole lot of waiting. Did they have
Mhm.
like crafty tables and stuff? And like, did they have, drinks and snacks like everyone? I didn't even know what that was until I got on my first set. And they're like, oh, yeah, the crafty table's here and there's like snacks and stuff. And I'm like,
They had
sweet.
some they had some snacks, but, like, me being the germaphobe that I am and seeing everybody touching all the food, and I was like, "I have
Mm.
not seen anyone use hand sanitizer or go to the bathroom to wash your hands." I was like, "I will starve."
Were they like licking their fingers?
Well,
Oh, no.
I won't say anymore. I just
Were you there for a
Yeah,
when
long
you
time?
have groups of people eating and then touching the group food,
yeah.
I can't. I can't.
Especially with all the actioning going on.
Yeah, it's like I know you
Yeah.
guys are touching grounds and walls and
Who knows what they're touching? Ew.
like
Okay. Yeah.
each other. I don't know, but like
Oh,
no. But they did have like chips and they had like some pastries because it was the morning. They brought in like a Keurig so you can make your own coffee.
And they
I
didn't
love
have
it.
like tongs or like a spoon, something? No,
No,
just go on and
it was a free for all. Just
oh,
grab what you want.
I love
oh
it.
no.
I love it.
Oh, I
I'm
don't
just
love that.
No, I just love the story because I think it's so fun.
Oh,
Did like I'm just happy that like, I just love being on set. Like I just think it's such a fun thing. There's people and there's energy and there's crafty tables and then there's like, like I said, a whole lot of hurry up and get on set and hurry up and wait and then, and then when you actually get a chance to like, do your actioning that you're doing, that's like top secret. It's just fun. I mean, I just shared a cool spot on social media that I was in a couple months back, right? And I never it was funny because one of my neighbors, I was walking my dogs. I'm always walking my dogs. We're still waiting on Issa, so I don't know where she is, but hopefully she comes soon. So yeah, so I was like walking my dogs and one of my neighbors' husbands was like doing some, I don't know, gardening or whatever, and he was trimming something. He was like, "Oh, hey, I saw you on the TV, or maybe it was the YouTube." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "What was I doing?" And he's like, "I don't know. You were like driving a car." I was like, "Oh my God, that was the Southeast Toyota commercial that I did." And I'm like, "Did you like can you find it again?" And he was like,
yeah.
"No." And then last night, my other neighbor on the other side, she found it and she is very resourceful. And so she got the link and like shared it in we're called the Fantastic Four. There's four houses in a row that and so it was the thread and so she shared it. And so I was like, "Oh my God." So last night I was, sending it to all my family and like
That is so
anybody
cool.
anybody that I could share it with. So, yeah, I
Very
mean,
cool.
finding that stuff out in the wild is so hard, and then sometimes it takes forever to get it, and by the time you get it, it's already too old to use or whatever. So I was just excited. And then there's like one that I found a friend that I met on set. She used to be a Disney princess, and then she aged out, and she was a part of the yoga arnica gel arthritis gel that I did. I can
Yeah.
talk about it because it's out in the wild. But she found it on is it iSpot TV? I think she found it on iSpot TV. Well, you can't download it unless you're like a premium member. And even if you're a
Oh,
premium member, like you download it, I can't get the link and I can't share it, so I can't use it. I mean, I was able
Yeah.
to share it on social media, but I wasn't able to like download it and save it to my computer so I could put it on my YouTube channel, which is frustrating because it's like you would think that they would want you to share it, right? Because it's more
Right.
publicity, right? It's free
Yeah.
advertising. So but you can see that on my website as well. Yay, she's here.
Hey,
Hi,
sorry,
Issa.
I actually was on
I
the Google meeting.
Oh, I know it's so confusing. That's why I put in my
Yeah.
note. I always say
No,
like
I know. Because I had to scroll down to take a look at the note when I didn't see anyone else on the Google Meet. Totally fine though.
I use Google to keep everybody in order, and then like
Sure.
I use the Zoom to do the recording stuff. Issa,
Yeah.
this is Gabby and Sandy.
Hi.
Hi, Gabby. Hi,
Hi.
Sandy.
Nice to meet
Nice to
you.
meet you.
We
There
were
you are.
just
Hey.
we were just chit-chatting about how like when it's so fun to find commercials out in the wild, especially
Yeah.
when yeah, because it's like hard to find sometimes. And one of the commercials I was in is on social media and one of my friends found it and she grabbed it and shared the link with me. Normally it's like a year down the road or 6 months down the road and you then it's like, it's already too old to use or whatever. So
We
I
had
was
that, our VFX department had that with the Picard trailer, believe it or not. So I get it. It wasn't used anywhere else on broadcast. It was just used on socials, and no one found it until like after season one was already done. But
yeah.
then, like, it's like you have to be really tenacious to finally get your. It doesn't matter how big it is. You just have to be tenacious.
Yeah, it's hard to find it out in the wild. You would think that like they would want to send it to you because it's like I was just saying, it's like free publicity, right? Because everybody's on social media now and everybody wants to share their work and all that kind of stuff. But
They're so overwhelmed. Like I know I make sure to send stuff to people, and I always hear back, "Wow, you're like the only one that actually did."
you
You know?
do. I love it.
Yeah.
I was just telling Sandy and Gabby too, that like we were thinking about different guests, I was like, I have to bring on Issa because
Oh,
I've been meaning to ask you for a while because like you found me on Backstage and
right.
I like loved your message when you actually booked me because you were like, okay, after a bottle of wine and a million voices, I choose you. And I was like, yes, who else can I send a bottle of something to for them to choose me? You know, like and then like just talking to you on the phone, I shared with like how you called me on Halloween. You know, it was like 6:01. I'm walking out the door. You didn't know this, but I was like walking out the door and
Yeah.
you're about to go trick or treating, and you're like, I need you to cut one more line. We're missing
Oh
a line.
God.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I'm back in my booth real quick. But I just enjoyed the interaction with like, you know, working with you on that.
You have
Mari
no
and
idea.
Azura.
It was me, David, the art director from Signet, the owner of Levion, the vice president of Levion, the president of Signet, and then like I think two other people all had to weigh in on all the voices. And finally, David and I, just had to spearhead it because the problem is when you get too many people weighing in,
Yeah.
it paralyzes the process.
Yeah.
And then finally, I was like, okay, guys, okay, David's got it down to two people, and then it was just like, no, David, and I picked Jocelyn, and that's it.
Yes.
That's it. Like, guys, no more. Let's just get it done. Because like
Yeah.
it went on for weeks,
Yeah.
weeks of this. It
I
was
think
crazy.
I think we forget about that too. Like being voice
Yeah.
actors, like we know that there's a sea of us that are coming to you. And I think we forget about the fact
Yeah.
that like the people that are sitting on your side of the table, you know, or that
Oh
your
God.
side of the microphone, like how probably stressful it is, you know. You want to talk about that a little bit? Because I
Well,
thought it was
it's
hilarious.
also, remember how many times we had to redo that one word, Doro, Dolce Doro.
No,
And
it
and
was
and
Mare Azzurro. I had to roll the
oh,
R's.
sorry, yeah, that was another one. Mare Azzurro. Yeah, fuck. We had both, we
You
had
had two
issues with both
campaigns back to
commercials that
back.
we were
Yeah.
doing. And they both had these Italian-esque, pronunciations. And the thing is, the vice president's wife of Levian is Italian, so that was in our. But some people who will rename nameless thought it was Dolce d'Oro, and I'm like, oh God, no! Anyone that speaks Spanish or Italian would be like cringe,
Yeah.
No, no, it's not. Um, and so like, and like with Mare Azzurro, it came down to like they wanted to do this heavy Italian, right? And I was like, guys, and David and I were on the same page with this. If you go for this heavy Italian, like Mare Azzurro, unlike it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. And
Hmm.
and so you did that, I think Mare Azzurro like 100.
I did a bunch.
You
Oh
did a
my
bunch.
God.
You did a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mare Azzurro, Mare
Mare.
Azzurro,
Yeah.
Mare Azzurro,
Yeah.
Mare Azzurro. It was like, and we literally had to splice in that
Yeah.
one word. But it's funny. Our sound engineers do a lot of A24's work. Like they did the two last Jesse Eisenberg films, and they do like they're just huge. So it took like a sound engineering company with that kind of chops to be able to like splice it in. But I'd call them last minute, just when I'd say, it's all done. You guys can wrap our project out. And they'd be like, are you sure? I'd be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd call them up like a day later. So you know how I said it was like done? It's not done. And it was that one word, right?
Yeah.
That there's that word, mare azzurro. And the thing is, finally, me and the Italian wife, had to basically say, guys, if you it's going to be like, hello, hello, English, 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 mare Zorro. It's like
Yeah.
suddenly I'm Zorro, and I'm like, if this was
Second.
like the Old Spice commercial, look at me, look at him, I'd be like, like look at me, you're buying American jewelry, look at him, it's Italian, you're on
Right.
the Italian coastline in a boat.
Yeah.
I'd feel differently, but
Right.
we all were like, we need, and you had to work really hard to get that balance between like Italian and a slight Americanized
Rolling of the
version of
R's. Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like that
It
was
was
really that was difficult.
it was so difficult. I think like before we recorded, when you told me like before we set up
Yeah,
our live director, like,
yeah,
oh, by the way, you're gonna need to pronounce Mare Azzurro. You're gonna need to roll the R's. And I was like,
yeah,
you're gonna have to be more, it's gonna have to sound more Italian. I was like,
yeah.
what? What?
I
What?
know.
That wasn't in the description. And so I spent like all weekend listening to
Yeah.
YouTube. I mean, I was,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's hard, that's a hard thing to do if you're not used to it. Especially if
Yeah.
you don't speak a second language and rolling of the R's comes naturally. I'm sure Gabby, you
Right.
could do it like in your sleep, but yeah,
Yeah.
but in the end, and
You
yeah,
did it. At the end, you did it. And
I
like the
got
thing
it.
is, I had to argue with them and like because I used to work at Italian Vogue for like 8 years, and so I was in Italy like 3 months out of the year, most years. And like I'm like, guys, really? Do you want like, you know, I'm walking down the street, Italian. I'm walking
Right.
down the street, Italian. I'm like, it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb, and your buyer is American. They're not gonna. And this was a huge in-house discussion. 2 words, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why you ended up having to do like 100 versions of it. You know?
I think it's interesting that you bring that up because because we also forget too as a voice actor that we're like the end of the line, right? Like
Right.
so much has happened. And then you're
Right.
like, okay, now we need to voice it, and it's gone
Yeah.
through like a giant group of people that have all had their hands in the pot, to
Yeah.
make it happen. And so I think that's like an interesting perspective that we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, and like I said, our following commercial was Dolce d'Oro, and I mean, it's like we have another one right now that's Tramonte d'Oro, and it's like, oh God, why guys, why must these have these like foreign names? But the owners are stuck on this like beautiful Mediterranean, ideals of like golden light beach, all really gorgeous, and I love the
Right.
idea of it, I really do, but it's like I said, we had the same problem in our next commercial because they one again nameless thought it was Dolce d'Oro, and we were like, no,
No.
anyone that speaks Spanish or any kind of romance language is going to go cringe,
Yeah. Yeah.
cringe.
And
Yeah.
ultimately it's up to the client though, right? So it's like not it's almost out of your
Mm,
hands.
yes and no. It is also up to us, the art directors, to make sure that the client isn't making a mistake. And yes, at the end it is, but I have to argue vehemently in their best interest.
Yeah.
And I will do so. Not everyone listens, but like I find like LVMH companies are really good about listening to their directors, and like my friend was the VP of Tiffany for creative, and she had a lot to say. She was the final word
Yeah.
of
That's cool.
of yeah. So it depends on the structure of the company, and in this case, the owners and I have, I mean, oh my God, in 1 year we just finished our wrap of our new commercials, and we I realize in 1 year I have outputted 17 commercials for them, which is,
Wow.
I know it's a huge media buy. So by now we have a certain amount of trust, but each battle that you face is sort of a new one, and but it does, your credit from your last one, it does help, and like also your commercial won the Telly Award,
Yeah. Yeah.
1,000 entries, uh, 4 winners. We won silver, but it was our first time as an ad agency. And then we partnered obviously with Signet, and David McMillan, who wrote the script. He used to be over at Ogilvy, and he's like a long term ad ad veteran, like total Mad Men vibes. Um, Very charismatic, and he was over the moon about the Telly win,
Yeah.
because that just showed you what a quality commercial that was. And in addition, I think as soon as it launched, it had over 743 million views, impressions, social media hits, because your commercial dropped in the holiday.
Yeah.
And so it was like the numbers just went,
Yeah.
and it just, people responded to it
Yeah.
incredibly, I mean, as because we entered both Dolce and Mare, and like you could just see that people really responded to the Mare Azura commercial that you were part of,
Yeah. It was a beautiful commercial, by the way. I mean, the ocean and the model and the
Yeah,
jewelry. I mean, like, and then you
Yeah.
paired it with my voice, and like, it was
yeah,
actually, it was one of those things that you seek and hope to find the
yeah,
perfect marriage of like the script and
yeah,
your voice, as from a voice actor's point of view, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
working with cool like casting and directors and producers. Like the
yeah,
whole experience was like a really cool experience. But I from going off and then like obviously seeing your experience with like submitting it to different awards, I mean, it's
right.
like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, like sweet,
Yeah,
and it's yeah, I just am happy to be a part of it. There's so much more though, because like you're casting, you're a filmmaker, you're a director,
Well,
right? Like
hold
you,
on.
right.
Before,
oh,
sorry,
sorry.
I just want to. I just had a question. Just because you said it took so long for those two words, which is impressive. Because as a voice actor, I never know what's going on behind the scenes. So I
Sure.
just wanted to
2 months. It took
ask
us 2 months to get those two words approved
two
in
months.
2 months. I mean, bless Jocelyn and her infinite patience. It literally was a
Yeah,
2 month process where we kept thinking it was done and it wasn't done. And then I think
that
you
is
had to redo a sentence and then also just do versions and versions and versions of that word, you know. I
Yeah,
mean, at the end it turned out to be worth it. But yeah, I think in total, I think it was 2 months of re-recording.
yeah.
wow.
Was it
So
that
how
long? It
long
didn't
does
feel
it
like
take for
Start.
like the whole from start to finish?
It depends. It always depends. Like, we just did a Michael B. Jordan commercial last year, and that one was very fast, but the approval processes were 6 months in advance. Levion is a family-run company, and Jared and Signet, one of their partner companies, which is national, is very has very tight leadership. So in this case, it works. I think we didn't have as much pre-approval process, but we had a lot more negotiation in the post process.
yeah. Yeah. So, and you found me on Backstage. Was that
Yeah.
maybe one of those things where it was like not the ordinary place to go looking for voice
No,
actors, because of this strike and
it,
stuff at the time?
no, I mean, it's like we did a very comprehensive casting. So we checked agencies, we checked everywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, like even for the model that we used, we cast over 7 continents. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I know. So we cast over 7 continents and we did the same kind of comprehensive vocal search. I mean, we sent messages out to like a friend of mine who's a composer who is Italian, who lives in Italy, who was working with the Danny Elfman studio. And so we sent messages out through the Italian expatriate community. We sent messages. So I think we saw maybe 800 applicants, 1,000 applicants, something like that.
For the
Um,
model or like,
no, for your voice.
oh my God. Now that's
So
like perspective right there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then maybe closer to 800, but it was, because like you can tell right away, you're listening to the first five. So like your first 5 seconds of your reel is key because that's all I was listening to when you're going through so many
Yeah.
um, voiceover actor reels. I need the first five. If the first 5 seconds catch me, I'll do a deeper dive into the first 10 seconds and I'll skip through it. Like I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So your first 5 seconds, your first 10 seconds, and your first 3 or 4 commercials had better be rock solid because so what we do is we go through the first 5 seconds, then we do a call, then we do another, then we do the 10 seconds, and we do another call. Because sometimes that first 5 seconds is great, but that's all they've got.
That's,
And then we do then we'd look over who has bodies of work. I don't really care about experience as much. Like that's never, I'm not the kind of person to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm only going to hire people with years and years of experience. It
right,
doesn't,
right.
like, I'm not prejudiced that way. But if they have self-taping and the self-taping isn't good quality or it doesn't carry it, then that's not going to do you much good because like I need to hear um I have a music background, which probably makes me a bit of a pain in the ass because, like, for me, I look for overtones, tonal variants, control of consonants.
Yeah.
I care about punctuation. I want somebody that uses their voice like a musical instrument. And you can ask the actors of like this World War II film that we're working on right now. I'm like, I want you to change your voice to carry
Yeah.
the pause message, you know, and I think that's where, you know, for voice actors, you know, your reels gotta demonstrate tonal variance, control of overtones, you
Hmm.
know, the ability to hold the words in your mouth with punctuation, you know, because it's very, you know, it's very percussive. It has to be very percussive.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, like you want, what is it Shakespeare said? I want the words spoken trippingly on the tongue,
I
right?
like that. Yeah.
So you've got to make sure as a vocal actor to put lots of consonants in between your sentences to make sure that you have a difference between, you know, because when we speak, we roll our words into each other. That's terrible on audio unless we want to, unless the character mumbles, right?
Yeah.
If
Right.
the character mumbles and oh my god, I'm a teenager and I have anxiety, blah, 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 you know, it's fine. But for a vocal actor, you've got to focus on the consonants. You've
Yeah.
got to focus on using your words, your pauses. The pauses are extremely important because that's how you're lending drama. It's critical that you learn your voice like someone uses their instrument, you know.
Yeah. I like that a
And that's
lot.
why I don't care about experience. What I want is facility,
Okay. I like
you know.
that. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to get pigeonholed.
Yeah. For
You know,
sure.
you're going to
Yeah.
be the everyday girl. You're going to be the, you know, oh my God, hi. Or, you know, or you're going to be the sexy voice. But if you can do both, you're going to work.
Yeah.
You know, your
Yeah.
voice has to be an instrument. You've got to be the John Coltrane of, you know,
Of
your vocal capacity.
yeah. I was gonna say, like, do you guys choose different voices for each campaign? You know, like,
Yeah,
it sounds like
sometimes.
that's what the client wants to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, or do you
Sometimes
ever, yeah,
Sometimes, I mean, it depends because, like, if the vocal artist has range, yeah. But we are finding that there's, you know, because it used to be like in the 80s, before my time, but I've talked to some of the old ad guys, you know, that there were only like 250 models, 100 photographers. You know what I mean? It was
yeah,
small. You knew who all the supermodels were. They were all friends, and you know, equally there were only a few vocal artists, so they had to be, you know, masters of their craft. Nowadays, instead of everybody wants to be an actor, everybody wants to be a model, everybody wants to be an influencer. So instead of hiring somebody who can play different roles, you're going to find the guy that is Irish, or you're going to find the girl that is exactly that specific thing, or can only do that voice. But yes, absolutely. I mean, with vocal, you'll be less likely to be pigeonholed as long as you can do it.
yeah,
You can do it, you know, you
yeah, yeah,
have to do it. But most people don't. I mean, that requires a certain kind of consideration
yeah,
and thoughtfulness that, you know, you have to slow down and study. You have to go to quote the old jazz players, you got to go out into the woodshed. You got to practice.
yeah,
You've got to practice your overtones. You've got
yeah,
to take vocal lessons. You've got to, and at the same time, you have to preserve your voice so that you don't get blown out. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
that's less of a thing with vocal artists, more of a thing with singers, but, you know,
yeah, yeah.
lesson.
So you were talking about, you said you're working on a film right now. So I think that that's so interesting because you sent me your bio and I was like, I'm like, I feel so domesticated right now. I feel like I need to like go travel the world. Like and I also follow you on social media and you're like everywhere. I'm like, where's Issa today? It's kind of like you, Gabby.
You
You know,
know,
like you're everywhere and you're like, you know, and I was just like, oh my God, this is like so interesting. And that's why I always like
I'm a
having
little
this
tired.
conversation.
I'm a little tired, but you know, we're
A little
big. It's Tribeca Film Festival right now. Like, you know, so we always try and I own a you know, company with two partners, and uh, we think of it as community building efforts. And
I
we
like that.
really, you know, my one business partner, John Engstrom, who runs Scheim Flug and Flug Films, our VFX department, like our VFX rig did like Justin Bieber's beautiful video, the scanning for Austin Butler, you know, that the aging for Elvis, you know, and Tom Hanks. And then they did like Halo, one of the soldiers, lots of Marvel, the two pigeons during the Super Bowl, which was hysterical. And we have another partner that we work with for the Post in England. Great guy, Visual Skies, amazing partner, and love them. Um, and we also did all together Yellow Jackets, Picard, Cabin in the Woods. I'm forgetting a bunch, but
Yeah.
you get it. So our
Yeah.
post department's really deeply involved with bigger studios. Um, our production department does more at the time because we just got through big strike and COVID. So our production side was focused for many years on commercials.
Yeah.
Um, but we also have a growing indie now that we're hopefully out of this strike.
Yeah.
The
Hopefully.
negotiation. Yeah, and so we're building our indie film department. I mean, we did a small, tiny indie film with another director that premiered just inside COVID. It did really well. It won a bunch of awards, and you know, and I think we just produced a charity film to bring awareness for cancer. We've got like about 1.2 million in kind donations.
Wow.
Feature, yeah, for to promote cancer research, and then we're also working with the Comanche Nation to tell a story that's been told for like 65 years. True story about Comanche contribution to the World War II efforts
Yeah.
and European theater. So that's been, a lot of the stuff we do is like John, who's also our DP, he's Doug Lyman's DP as well. He, Born Identity director, John's really experienced. So we're super fortunate to have him as a partner and
Yeah.
B as our DP. And so we'd flown down to like Oklahoma to go ask permission from the families. Since none of the Comanche code talkers are still alive, but to ask permission from their families to tell their story,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
that kind of thing. So we're getting ready to shoot the proof of concept for it this July to send out to. I think it's going. I have talked to our producer. I think it's going in front of DreamWorks and Columbia Pictures.
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's and toes crossed. It does well.
So that's how that works then. Like you come up with a concept. I mean, there's so much that happens before you even get on set, and even before
Yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So I mean, like that's also like very interesting for me because there's like, you have to come up with an idea and then you have to get permission and you talk about scouting and then you have to do proof of concept and then you have to like pick your actors and then you have to
Sure.
like
Yeah.
film it and then it's
It's years.
production and yeah,
It's
and then
years. Sometimes it takes six. We've been working on the cancer research film for about 4.5 years.
wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So, because
exciting.
like everything for the cancer film, because it's a charity, has pretty much been donated. So, and so we work when we can, and we keep pushing it forward. But it's for a good cause. A lot of the actors were either in treatment or cancer survivors,
Oh
so
wow.
we would have to take like 4 to 6 month break. One of the lead actors husband passed away. So
Oh
there was another 6 month break. Actors would get COVID. Actors would go into remission,
yeah.
remission, and then sometimes have attacks. And so our shooting schedule was tried to handle with the utmost sensitivity to the actors' conditions at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. S-
Yeah.
So when you're working with like the Gabby, did you have a question? I don't want to.
No, go ahead.
No, okay. I was gonna say when you're working on your outside, you're working on this latest film, when you said you have to shoot proof of concept, you know, um, outside of it's an indie film, right? It's
Well, the proof of concept is to get it not to be an indie film. I
right,
mean,
exactly.
like the reason we felt that in this case we had to shoot a proof of concept is because we're an indie studio,
Yeah,
but we're also telling a story that isn't traditional to big film studios, and
sure.
we have to show kind of like our best foot forward of how this actually would fit into big theater.
Right, right.
And if we can tell this in a really emotional, way that would be appealing, that's our hope, is to partner with one of the bigger studios, because this one would have, it's not like an indie talking head piece, and this would involve like um, invasion of Normandy, which is very, very expensive to shoot.
Yeah.
So,
And
and we're also pitching it to be not just a feature, but a TV series, because there's so much information, there's so much to that story to be told about these families, and their contribution, and the history, and a lot of the native tribes. Like basically the Navajo were acknowledged, but they had 412, I think that's right, 412 members of the Code Talkers working in the Pacific Theater, whereas it was like 17 Comanche, I think the number is like 12 Cherokee, and so on and so forth. So lesser known, and it wasn't actually talked about until I think 1998. The French came over and gave them a Legion Medal of Honor, and it was like, and then again, not completely ignored until Obama comes along and starts, really advocating for Native American rights, which is kind of a big deal. I'm
yeah,
I'm really knee deep in the politics of this right now, and it's very it's important to be as honest with the subject as possible.
yeah,
You
and
know.
transparent.
Mhm.
You just answered my question. I was going to ask you, like, coming from the cancer film and then moving into this other film about Native Americans and, the influence or how they were a part of this particular project that you're,
Mm.
sharing the story about. Like, how do you find these topics, and it sounds like you're influenced by different people that you come across, because I see that you met Michelle Obama, which is kind of cool.
I worked with her.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
worked
that's
with her. Yeah, she was amazing. It was, I think, after COVID, my husband died of a heart attack very
I'm
suddenly at
sorry.
50. No, it's, he's Italian, and he says, Il mano del destino. And the film that we awarded was his film, and I basically had to finish it. And I'd been, I was working in fashion as a fashion editor, and um, working, with studios and producing. And I was talking about going over to film for years. And I'd been working with like Danny Boyle on projects, and I traded with some directors for 6 years. I'd been quietly switching over to film, and instead of going to film school, I would like work for free for all the big directors and small directors I knew. I'm like, I'd do anything. I didn't care. I was like, I'll sweep, I'll run coffee, I'll work a different department. I just wanted to learn, right?
Yeah.
Because none of the film schools would take me part time. I talked to
Oh,
NYU, I talked to Columbia, I talked to all of them. They said, you would have to quit to go to film school full time. And I'm like, well, my dad has dementia, my husband just died. Um, it's really not possible for me to quit everything, quit my life,
right.
and
Yeah.
go, I had a dog that had just spent 3 years I'd rescued. $60,000 later, he was now you know what I mean? Like he was paralyzed when I got, how it is. You're like, I got this puppy, and the puppy suddenly can't walk 2 weeks later, and everyone's like, give up the puppy. And you're like, go screw
No.
yourself. I'm not giving
Yeah.
up this puppy.
Yeah.
This is for me to do. Right. And
Yeah.
$60,000 later. And I looked at the dog at one point. I'm like, God, I've worked so hard this year. Where did it go? And I'm like, oh, you,
Yeah.
that's right. There it is. And worth every penny, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Worth
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
penny. But like, and I remember thinking, I'm like, I get applications from film students, hoping to intern with me in my production company. I'm like, and I said to them, I'm like, you want me to quit school, to go full time, to lose my contacts, to go then out of school to hopefully get those contacts back when I get
Yeah.
resumes from your schools.
Yeah.
Um, and again, dad with dementia, husband just died, had to like figure my life out. No, I'm just, so I called directors up and I'm like, hey, can I work your department? Can I just learn? I'm switching. I'm going to go. And then after Andrew died, John, the DP, and Andrew's lawyer, entertainment lawyer, sat down. They They took me by the shoulders because I was a mess. Oh my God. I was a mess. I had another friend who lost her husband, and she goes, "You think you're going to be fine. You think you're going to be fine, but you're not going to be fine. And it's going to take 5 years, 2 years for you to realize how not fine you were, and 5 years for you really to be okay." And I'm
Yeah.
so much more like, no, we just got to, we had an investor in Andrew's film that wanted to change the script. He wanted to, we're just going to finish this. And he looked me in the eye and he said, "You better raise more money." So, in 1 week, I raised $30,000. So I looked at him in the eye because I am not a very shy person. And I said, "This is no longer your film. This is our film because I am now putting in a significant amount of money in a very short amount of time." And
Yeah.
we had investors that just basically knew the tragedy and came through for us,
Yeah.
and we finished it. We got those last scenes finished, and and on it went. It's one of the few films I can't watch. I can't watch it. I can't look at it. I can't. We have the poster. I can't even look at the poster. I'm being very honest. It's just
No,
this
that's okay.
beautiful
Yeah.
testament, and it just has to sit in another room, another place.
What is the name of the film?
Blue Cosette. It was his. So Andrew used to work with Discovery Channel, and he was hanging out with a lot of socialites in New York City, and I think he had this aspiration to be like Truman Capote because he started writing down their stories. And as crazy and
Oh,
as whimsical as this fashion film is, it's actually based almost verbatim on a socialite's life minus her name, right?
Right.
And he had all these wild stories of just socialites, only I think he'd learned the lesson from Truman Capote: don't put their name in it,
Yeah.
yeah.
and you know what I mean? Like, and so he'd been collecting, and he'd had this idea to do these kind of like fashion forward films based on these lives of socialites, and as this compilation. And what's crazy, like I said, is it was almost a verbatim of what she believed, her beliefs, and
Yeah.
it was wild. It definitely, I was like a little bit nervous because I'm like, again with the swans and Truman Capote's swans, and I'm like, are you sure this is? It didn't go down so well for him. Are you sure it's
Yeah.
going to go down well for you? But anyway, he did pass, and but so at the end of all that, and me having to fight so hard for my team, because we went back to filming the week after he died, and
Oh
it
my
was like
gosh.
I was in survival mode because um, I was legally obliged to finish the film. Um, and I I don't know. It was just like at some point, I think it actually was the best thing because you take all your pain, you put it in a little box.
Hmm.
And then and because it's so big, so much pain, you're being judged by people because you're shooting, and, everybody's got an opinion, and what you don't
Yeah.
realize, like, I'm legally obliged to shoot. I would love
Right.
to crawl under a bed and forget the world. But in a way, I think it was better that that didn't happen because you put all your pain into a box. It's too big to look at. And then you take it out from in your box and like, oh no, I can't deal with you yet.
Yeah.
Because you're waiting for time to take the edge off the pain,
Yeah.
right? Make it
Hmm.
smaller so that you can then rationally deal with it. That's where I was wrong. I thought I could rationally deal with it, and there's no rationally anything.
Yeah.
But so John Engstrom and my lawyer, who's now my lawyer, Mitch, said, "Ise, I'm going to say this to you, and I'm going to say this to you now. You need to make the dive." She goes, "There's a door that opens, and if you don't walk through that door, someone else will." And so I
Yeah.
said, and that was it. I basically said, "Okay, guys, I'm leaving fashion." And also another good friend of mine who was also a fashion editor, she'd said, "Make sure you're ready when you quit because they're going to be so happy to get you out the door." Because in fashion, it's so competitive, and we were like both of us at the top level, and if there was one less top person in there, well, you know,
Yeah.
suddenly they were going to be a lot nicer to you because you weren't there to, it's so competitive, it's so cutthroat. I was joking that fashion made film seem like a healthy environment, but it's actually kind of true. You know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I did. I closed, I pretty much I still have some clients, like certain clients that I still consult with, that I'm delighted to consult with. Like one of my favorite clients is an opera singer, and she just won the Grammys, and she just performed for the President of the United States, and
Wow.
she's doing great work. And, whenever she calls me, I'm like, whatever you need, however you need it, how can I help?
Yeah,
Um,
I love
but
that.
I think that moving over to film has been, because it wasn't just a move over to film. Like, I've always been a writer. As an editor, you're a writer, you're a producer, you're a psychologist, you're a coffee runner, you're a best
Yeah.
friend, you know what I mean? Like when you
Yeah.
work in production, you wear many hats. You have to, especially if you're the ones traveling, because like it'll be me in Australia with a photographer, and the equipment will get lost, and the photographer shoots for big magazines, is throwing a tantrum, literally a tantrum, like a 5-year-old, and like, oh my god. And so here I am, I can't call the office. Conde Nast office is closed because I'm in Australia, so I'm finding equipment, I'm calming him down, I'm calling his agent and telling him he needs to calm his photographer down, and I'm finding film because we were shooting, film cameras. I'm finding, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. And you're getting the talent, and you're wrangling, and so I learned a lot about hands-on production and, film companies and celebrities, because I was primarily a cover editor, and we
Right.
worked in partnership with major film studios. And I also directed video for, Condé and Hearst, um, which was a privilege. And and that's kind of where my my wings started growing when I
Yeah,
was.
your origin story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's why, it's like, so I'm very grateful, immensely grateful. I mean, I know there's a lot of horror stories that come out of Hearst and Condé Nast, but to be honest with you, I found it to be an extremely profoundly nurturing environment, at the magazine itself. I know a lot of people had different experiences, and I'm sure everyone's seen Devil Wears Prada,
Yeah, I was
but
just gonna say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was at Italian Vogue under Franca, and yes, it was very competitive, but to be honest with you, I found it to be incredible. I had an amazing experience. I worked at one point for Elon Musk. I
Oh,
also
wow.
found that to be an incredible experience, and the Obamas were incredible. I mean, just life changing. Robert Redford was life changing. There's so many of these people that you work with. Um, Redford, it was 2 weeks for a film, for his film press, and you meet them, and you intensely maybe travel with them, or you work with them very, intensely for 2 weeks or one day or maybe a year, and you get to see a side that no one else does, and it's just profound and beautiful and life changing, because you see why they are where they are. They are some powerful, intelligent, incredible people, and you just grow. You can't help but grow from
Hmm.
them, and so I love how people, I love listening, and sometimes people talking all this nonsense about people, that are in the news, and having had some direct experience, I'm like,
Yeah.
I have a different, and maybe it was me. I was lucky, but I had a much different experience. But I mean, I don't think anyone could say anything bad about the Obamas. Not one person who came across them. You walk away with this like, I'm so emotional. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they represent everything that we wanted as young, intelligent, um, artists, human beings, business people. They represented, like, it felt very much like Camelot when they were in office.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I wish we could have that back. You know,
Yeah. What did you do with, like, what were you there for that meeting?
Michelle's New York Press.
Oh,
One
okay. That's
one
okay.
Oh
of the
wow.
Yeah, we had to get, each of us had to get. I flew back. I was in Belize with, my agent, who was like 6 months pregnant at the time, and we were hiding out on an island, just trying to recover from the stress of just whatever life. And I got a phone call saying, "I can't tell you why, but you need to come back." And I'm like, and it was somebody named Harriet Coleman, who changed my life in so many ways, and she ended up becoming, Ebony Magazine's press, like permanent press, like contact. She was the editor in chief of Ebony later on, and she'd become, their permanent, press contact over at the White House at the time. So when Harriet called, the answer was always going to be yes, you know, because
Yeah.
with her, I'd worked with Mary J, Alicia Keys, Queen Latifah, like
Wow.
Harriet Cole changed my young life. I met her when I was in my young 20s, and when she believes in you, she changes your life, and that's Harriet, you know. And
Yeah.
so she called me and she said, I can't tell you why, and I don't know what your politics are, but you need to come back to New York. So I was like, okay. So I left my agent in Belize at this first class resort with,
Oh,
service. And
wow.
she's like, you're leaving? I'm like, I'm so sorry. I have to go. And I
Yeah.
called the flight, and she's like, send me all your info. Meanwhile, they're running background checks, yada, yada, yada. And we landed to Michelle Obama with like 27 Secret Service.
Oh
And,
my God.
and we were like, she's 27. She has 27-inch legs. 27? No, 37-inch legs. They go up to they go up to like mid. When I stood next to her, I'm like, wow, wow. But
That's
yeah. But that
that's
goes.
cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That is amazing.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like your fashion base,
Yeah,
kind of helped you. Like, I can see the arc of your story to like where you are now because you have like this very broad, experience, so
Yeah.
now you're actually casting, major commercials and films and
yeah,
indie, and you know what it's like in the industry for
right.
fashion, and
Yeah.
then now and then working with different actors and different in writing and publications, like you
Yeah,
understand like a wide range of things that are happening in multimedia. So it's like it makes sense, and you're a very dynamic person. So it's
thank you.
like and so when you text, I was like, yes, like and it's fun to work with people, from a creative standpoint.
Yeah,
It's fun to work with people, like you said, finding people that have an impact on your life and
yeah,
changing your
absolutely.
world. Like that was that's exciting because like you said, there's a sea of creativity out there, and there's a lot of people, a lot of voices, a lot of models, a lot of actors and
Right,
producers and directors and everything, and it's like finding the people to connect with where you can make magic and people can help
absolutely,
change your life is like
absolutely.
is really cool.
And to give yourself room to grow. One of the things that I used to love about like Francis Bacon and the UK art scene is that they would allow their designers, their artists to grow. It wasn't like you had to be an overnight sensation. And I think there's so
Yeah.
much pressure on people these days to be a fully complete whole thing. And
Yeah.
if you don't make it, like my assistants are constantly like, oh, I'm not gonna make it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you're 22, calm down, and it takes like 5 years to know what you don't know, 10 years to kind of have a base, 15 to really develop. And you got to give yourself that time. I
Yeah.
remember like I used to test myself because I was a really good like copy editor. I was a really good writer of articles, fiction, but fiction, I hadn't grown up enough. And I used to test myself. I would write something and I'd be like, nah, because I knew that I hadn't grown up enough.
Yeah.
There's this, when I was like, I think it was like 18, I had this gorgeous, um, Scottish, uh, lover from Stanford. And he was a marine biologist that specialized in Antarctic. Like, yeah, he was both smart and handsome. I mean, it was just this gorgeous love affair. But he gifted me at 18 this book of, no, I think it was 20, 18, 20 years old, this book of uh, Paulo Coelho's 100 Love Sonnets. And he was reading it to me, and I was crying. And he goes, why are you crying? And I remember at 20 being like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And I was so determined. And I took that book, and every day I read it. And it was like this mystery. It was like this box, this unknown, because it contained things that we don't understand or maybe don't as much give value to,
Hmm.
emotional depth. We run away from pain, we seek out pleasure, but we don't try and live a full life. We're so constantly afraid
Hmm.
to live with our anxiety, to live with our pain. When the truth of the matter is, if you're an artist, you need these things, you need to embrace them, you need to hold them, both the joy, that phrase, it's like you need to have enough pain to give you depth, enough joy to make it worth it. I can't remember the whole phrase, but
Yeah.
um And then I remember I had this boyfriend later on. We were supposed to get engaged, and he cheated on me, and I was heartbroken. But then like this light bulb went off in my head, and I ran home, and I pulled that magic moment. I pulled the Paulo Coelho book off my shelf, and this was like 10 years later, and I opened it up, and I'm crying. I'm crying because I now get it. I'm like, every page. I'm like, I understand. It's like it happened. I finally got it. And I actually drove my car. Artists are crazy. We're all nuts. And I drove my car to his house where the girl was.
Oh,
And I knocked on the door and I said, thank you. You, you have her, but me, I have this. And that is worth so much more. And I wish you guys both the best. And I went home and I was like, I mean, it was like this moment, and I can tell you the exact poem. It was like, I can write the saddest lines tonight, and it was like because I'd read it a week before, and I didn't get it. I
Yeah.
didn't understand it, and then that night I read it, and it was about the poignancy of loving someone that you can't admit that you love, and then and then coming to the end that you do love them, even though that they're gone, and you
Wow.
have to have that kind of profound honesty in your performance, in your music, in your writing. Anyone that doesn't allow themselves the chance to grow like a plant, you're cheating yourself, the depth of becoming a fully realized human being. And you can't give good art from
Yeah.
a place of like you can't be an artificial plant and then say that this is good food, like
I
here's a
love that.
plastic orange, it's delicious. Everyone's going to inherently know, no, this is garbage, right?
Right, right.
Take your GMO plastic orange and it's not edible. So you,
Yes.
you have to, whether it's and so what I did was I put myself in the fashion world to grow.
Yeah.
That was my plant. That was my fertilizer because I needed to grow up. I think I'd been a very protected kid, and I was given so much as a kid, and it took me a long time to process it. And maybe some people process. Everyone's got their deal, but
Yeah.
you've
Everybody's got something that they got to
everybody's
deal
got
with.
something. And the thing is, I was with a group of actors. I pissed them all off. I'm really good at that. Um, they said they were talking about they were all trauma bonding, and they get around to me, and they said
Trauma bonding.
yeah, they were all trauma bonding, and they get to
Yes.
me and they said, well, what about you? And I go, I don't believe in trauma. And they go, what? I'm like, well, no, I do believe in trauma. Like you are an Afghani soldier, or you're an American soldier. You come back and you have PTSD. That's real trauma. There's some stuff that what they were talking about to me. I said and I said, let me clarify before you get pissed off at me because I saw them all looking at me daggers. And I said, if you like who you are, and I do, I said, I'm looking at all of you and I really love all of you, who you are, as you are right now. And you take away even one of those experiences, because I'm listening to you talk about it like you want to wish it away. I said, you don't become the person that you are. Maybe you become shallow. Maybe you're like crazy. Maybe you don't love your husband. Maybe you don't develop in a way that turns into who you are now. So I personally think that um, this each of these things that you are holding on is the thing that is the most precious. And he said,
Hmm.
well, how would you know? And I said, well, I had an abusive relationship with my father. And I say that with a smile because we turned it around. I mean, granted, not everybody has that privilege, right?
Right,
Like
right.
not everybody, but like my dad and I came to a place where as an adult, he apologized. I came to him, but I had already grown past it. And I realized that he had given me the toughest lessons of my life, and I was grateful. I was grateful. In fact, I was ecstatic because I learned at a young age, like, you know, defeat is not getting back up. So you got to
Hmm.
get back up. You just got to
Hmm.
keep getting back up. Yeah, okay, you dropped the ball, you failed, you feel like shit, you said the wrong thing, you fucked up that job. Get back up.
Hmm.
Everybody fucks up. And
Yeah.
And I feel like we are so tough on ourselves because of the social media where everybody's, oh my God, everything's so perfect, you know? And it isn't, right?
Yeah.
It's gritty, it's human, it's dirty, it's awful, it's wonderful, it's messy. We're messy. Humans are messy, and we've not allowed ourselves the grace to be messy and to
Yeah.
grow and to
Yeah.
grow as a vocal artist, to grow as a musician. We
Yeah.
have to have a full spectrum of an experience to have that, you know?
Yeah, I love that perspective actually, because all too
Yes.
often we all like get kind of stuck on the negative things that are happening in our lives and why this
So
happened to
natural.
me and
Right.
actually and if you look at it as if it's a part of you and a piece of you and it
So
is
important.
that piece is creates all of you and if you
Right.
took that piece away then part of you is missing, you know,
Yeah.
so you wouldn't be exactly who you are today. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that so much.
And every time I meet somebody, I'm like, wow, you're wonderful. You're a beautiful person. You're
Yeah.
flawed and incredible. Why would you wish that away?
Yeah.
It's so valuable. It's gonna, because especially as a young writer, I mean, I remember just constantly doing this test. I would self-test myself. And I'm like, I would call my own writing puerile. You know, I'd be like, it's too puerile. I don't have enough things to say that are
Yeah.
sure if I want to write kids books, sure, you
Right.
know, but I wanted to write meaningful things, you
Yeah.
know. I just
Hmm.
saw this movie called Ezra. You should see it. It's about an autistic kid, but it's more about the father and how he deals with his kid with autism, and it's incredible. And it was written and directed by Tony Goldwyn. I don't remember his partner writer's name, sorry. But and then we saw another one, All the Love. I think it's All the Love We Have with Margaret Cho, and
Hmm.
it was profound. They say it's about a movie about a woman who loses their dog, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It's about life in all its actuality, you know, the
Yeah.
pain, the trauma.
Yeah.
They just say that. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's actually the not a, it doesn't encapsulate even close to what it is, but you know, but and then you have Pixar Inside Out, where the CEO talks about the power of joy. So then there's the other side of it, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's this full spectrum, like,
Yeah.
or Up. Oh my God, how many of us cried the first 10 minutes of Up?
Yeah.
Right?
Sandy's like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
I can't ever watch that movie again. I was wrecked.
Me
Wrecked
too.
through that whole
Me
movie.
too. But here, Sandy, let me ask you, when was the last time you saw a film depict a happy marriage like that? Tell me one, just one. Just
Oh,
name one.
can't.
Right.
Can't.
They were in love. They lived a life. And at the end, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like everything is like, so we show dysfunctional relationships more than we show. But Pixar Up, it's the first time we saw a happy marriage,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
true.
And yeah, that I like my kids always look at me in the movie theater like, "Are you crying?" Like, "No, I'm not crying. You're crying.
You're
Everybody stop
Yeah.
crying.
it. Stop
Same.
it."
Same.
And I'm like sniveling and I'm like, it's and it's like, yeah, you gotta be my kids are always like, "You're crying." I'm like, and I ugly cry. It's horrible. But anyways.
Oh,
Actually,
it's
really made me
everything.
think about that because now that I'm thinking of all these movies, we see the
There's
beginnings of relationships
Right.
building, the
Right.
honeymoon stage,
Right.
but we never see
The
the
full
after, the
Right.
happily ever after. We
Right.
just
hmm
see
Right.
the beginning of that.
Right.
And then
Right.
usually what they show later is like misery, cheating,
Oh,
divorce, like
like
the
what's the
marriage
yeah.
is awful.
message? What's the messaging? The messaging is that
Right.
most relationships are terrible. You know, it's like I don't know if you guys ever seen this comic Daniel Sloss at it when he was like 19 or 20. He did this whole bit called Jigsaw. And he says we're constantly trying to fit somebody into to be our piece, but when we're not whole, we can't make somebody be our piece or become what they want us to be their piece. He goes, you have to find who you are first. And but he's kind of a dick about it in this beautiful, lovely way. He's like, so if you watch this special and I break you up, please Twitter me. And it's like, and I think he's got like 30,000, like maybe the number's too high, but it's like 10,000 breakups because of him, you know.
Yeah.
But
Oh
you know
wow.
what I would like to see are the more ups. You know, I want that happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
like
want
Yeah.
that.
that joy. You know.
Yeah, I think we're all seeking that joy.
Yeah.
I have to keep us on time and on track.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask you on that note. I wanted to do our fun question because I kind of feel
Oh.
like it fits
Okay.
because like I'm thinking whenever we talk
Yeah.
about up, I think of like the dog. He's like, hi, squirrel,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And you
yeah.
were talking about how you're a dog mom, and
Yeah.
so this fits. I'm a dog mom too, and Sandy, and yeah, and so is Gabby. So this is a fun question. It's a round table question. And what breed of dog would you be? So if you were a dog, what breed would you be? You want to go first, Gabby? I feel like
Yeah,
it's a quick
yes, I
answer.
already have it. Chole Squinky.
A what?
It's a Mexican dog. It's Chole Squinkle. They're hairless. It's Mexican
Oh,
hairless.
I
Oh,
love
yeah.
those songs. They're so cute. They're amazing.
That's so random. Oh my God. Okay, Sandy,
I love
it's funny. Sandy, do you have a dog that you would be?
Honestly, I think I would just be a mutt. I would just
Oh,
be a
them.
mix
Oh,
of whatever came my way, and this is just what turned out to be me.
I love it.
That's so funny. Isa?
I'd have to. God, I'm gonna sound like a dip saying this, but I'd be a wolf dog because the dog I
Yeah.
rescued was a wolf dog.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I love
he's
that though, because it's also
yeah,
part of your production, your film. I mean, it's like
yeah,
it's your artwork, I mean, it's like
yeah.
basically
I
the
mean,
basis.
that's about the whole thing is that he runs amok everywhere. It's like he does run amok. Wolf dogs are they're about as intelligent as 2 years old, but they're like very pranky. They prank and they are very mischievous.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That
yeah.
that
Yeah,
definitely
that's
suits
beautiful.
you. I would
What
just
about you?
I'm like so cheesy and like I'm gonna be a golden retriever because like,
Oh,
Oh,
you
those
yeah.
are
know,
the best.
yeah, so
That's
yeah, I'm well, the hair. So I mean, lots of hair.
awesome.
Um, okay, Gabby's gonna ask the final question, but I feel like she kind of already answered it. But if you want to ask her like the one final
Yeah.
question.
Well, before that, I just want to say that speaking to you and hearing you talk has been profound. I got
Thank
teary
you.
eyed at a moment because the way that your perspective on life and art and the arts in general just is inspiring, and
Mm.
it it's just
Yeah.
beautiful as a whole, and it was such a pleasure just
I'm
listening
really,
to you.
thank you. I'm
Oh
so
my God,
grateful to be here with
I
you
got
guys.
Yeah.
thank you. So the last question is, out of everything that you have done career-wise, what is the one thing that you're most proud of?
I know
It's
it's
always gonna
deep.
be, yeah, I know, I know. I can tell you a funny one.
Yeah,
A funny
that's
Yeah.
fine. Fun's
Okay.
good.
Okay, I'll tell you a funny one. So, I always joked around. I said to my agent back then, I'm like, I don't care if it's donkeys. I'll dress anything. I'm like, let's do it. And then my trainer, who trains on Broadway, she called me one day about dressing Peapod, and I can't remember the name of the other goat. Her goats were on Broadway, and they were going to the Tony Awards. And she goes, would you help me with this? I'm like, absolutely. So we put bow ties and diapers that we custom made for the goat to
Oh
go to.
man.
Now the problem was the press the next day said this. Yes, De Niro was there. Yes, every star was there, but the real stars of the show were the two goats, Peapod, and I can't remember the other one's name. And so people got pissed that the goats got top billing. And
Oh man.
and then I was on the set with Frozen, and the girl that plays Anna, amazing actress, overheard me saying, "Yeah, I think everyone's pissed because the goat showed up on the Tonys," and she grabs my hand. And she goes, "You dress goats? You dress goats?" She goes, "That's it. You need to retire. Your career has peaked." And I look at her and go, shit, I think you're right. I'm like, I definitely, it was like, it was everywhere. It was these two goats in
I
the
love it.
newspapers everywhere. And people were like pissed because like no one else got any headline space. The goats did.
Yeah.
Like the newspapers are two goats in bow ties and diapers. And it was like, and I'm like, I called my agent. I go, Anna, the actress who played Anna, she's like, she thinks I peaked. I think she's right. I think that might be my most proud moment.
I love it. That's like
I
the
love
best.
that.
That is amazing.
That is amazing. I love that. That was a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on.
you so
Thank
much.
you
Yeah.
guys.
If anybody wants to connect with you, we got to do the business stuff. Like if anyone wants to find
Anybody.
you. Yeah.
Instagram. I have a policy that we always reply. Unless somebody really writes something like crazy or stalkerish, like we try to at least let people. It's I think it's really rude that this new habit of not replying. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me, they can Instagram or my production site Lost and Found, production no s, or Ise Films, and we do actually respond. We always try and respond, at least let you know that we received it. Even if we can't respond more at length, we always try and let people know, just because it's grandmotherly good manners kind
Yeah,
of thing.
exactly. I think
Yeah.
we need better manners these days
Yes.
because it's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 Well,
I
I'll get all.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. What are you
No,
gonna
no,
say?
I was going to say, because we picked that up from the president of IMG, who once said, I answer every email myself. It might take me a while. And I thought to myself, that is freaking amazing. And so as a company, we do the same thing, because
I love that.
it just, I think our job in life is to help reduce anxiety. So if I answer you, you as the recipient have less anxiety. And that we do these things intentionally, because I've seen so much anxiety being built up in our business unnecessarily. So we try and do things to help promote a mental wellness. So part of the reason we do answer is because and as a human being, you are received and heard. And I think those two things are extremely important. But
Yeah.
that's where our company policy comes in.
Oh, I love that so much,
Yeah.
especially being on this side of the microphone for sure. Like the
Yeah.
not hearing anything is like that's like torture. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the
Yeah.
communication. Yeah. We'll put all the show notes and the show links and in your guest profile on our website. So thank you so much for coming.
Yes,
Thank you
thank you so
guys.
much.